Question 9, question 1. A survey of 400 people is carried out by a market research organization in 2 different cities, Buenos Aires and Montevideo. The people are asked in which brand of cereal they prefer out of Chocos, Zucos, or Fruity. The table below summarizes their responses. So we have that. Now, this over here would be your data. These are just the totals that we would have. Now, firstly, the first part is some probability. I'll go through that with you, although this is not the major aspect of this. So one person is chosen at random from those surveyed. Find the probability that this person does not prefer Zucos. So we've got one person, and we want to see that if they don't prefer Zucos. Now we can see here that we have the preference for Zucos is 120, so the preference not for Zucos is going to be these two, 100 and 180. So it's going to be 280 divided by the total of 400. So that becomes, that is exactly 0.7. For the second one, prefers Chocos given that they live in Montevideo. Okay, so we have this, so let's just clear it. So we know that there's 210 persons that live in Montevideo, and from the survey it said that 57 preferred that, so it would be 57 divided by the 210. So that works out to be about 0.271. Then 2 persons are chosen at random from those surveyed. Find the probability that they both prefer Fruity. So for the first person, we know that there's 180 that prefer out of a total. So for the first person, it would be 180 out of 400. And then we know that the next person, that they would prefer, well, the first person preferred it, so there's only 179, and it's going to be out of 399 because one person is already chosen, so we'd get that probability over there, and from that you get about 0.202. So that's the probability part, not the thing that we're concentrating at the moment. Then it says the market research organization tests the survey data to determine whether the brand of cereal preferred is associated with a city. A chi-squared test at 5% level of significance is performed. State the null hypothesis. Well, the null hypothesis would be that there is no association between the brand of cereal and the city, or that the brand of cereal is independent of the city. So that is independent. Important word to use when you're talking. So the brand, I'll call that brand, is independent of the city, the C. State the number of degrees of freedom. To work out the number of degrees of freedom, you see the number of rows, which is 2, number of columns, which is 3. So you say 2 minus 1 times 3 minus 1, that's going to be 2, will be your number of degrees of freedom. Then it says E, show that the expected frequency for the number of people who live in Montevideo and prefer Zucos is 63. So now, if we look at the total, if there was no preference, the expected value would be, we would take the number of persons that prefer Zucos is 120, divided by 400 is a probability that overall they will prefer the Zucos. And then we times by the number of people in Montevideo, and that's 210, and we should get from that 63. So the expected value would be 63 that would prefer Zucos. Then it says write down the chi-squared statistic for this data. Now this is best done by using the graphics calculator, so let's go there. Go to my calculator. Now I already have for this, remember you go to your matrix, so you go second function matrix, and I already have put in this data, so it's going to be A, and I have put these values in. You see here, I have put in 43, 85, and 62 here, and 57, 35, and 118 there. So I've put in my data. So then what I do is I go to second function list, and I go to, sorry, let me just get this right. I go to my test, sorry. So I go to my second function, I go to my stats, and then I go to my tests, and I say yes. Let me just do this again, sorry. So I go to stats, I go to my tests, I go down, I've got to be careful with going down here to, there we are, there's my chi-squared test. I say enter. It says observed as A, B is there, and then I calculate. So I say enter, and it gives me my chi-squared value. So my chi-squared value there is 39.3. 39.3. And then state whether the market research organization would accept the null hypothesis. Clearly justify your answer. Now, so we had 39.3. Now we need to go to our table. Now we have 2 degrees of freedom. So I go 2 degrees of freedom. We had 5%. We were looking at a 5% level of significance. So the 5% means that we would be stating that 95% of the chance that the null hypothesis is correct. If it's above that, then this is not correct. So my chi-squared value is greater than the 5.991, and therefore the null hypothesis we do not accept. Not accept the null hypothesis.